Episode 4 of reviewing every single Marvel movie until I get to 1,000 subs. Right now, we're pretty close. 923. Keep it going, lads. Don't you just watch Thor and think, wow, this is relatable? No, I don't mean this scene, I mean the actual story of Thor. The story itself is very relatable for many people like me, and here's why. It's about family and how the actions of our parents shape the way in which we grow up to behave. For example, if you raise your first child with the mindset that he's always going to grow up to be an almighty king, he's also likely to grow up to be arrogant and power hungry. And then if you raise your second child, the little brother, to be just some average person that's only there to cheerlead for, the little brother's gonna grow up to be bitter and angry against the dynamic that you've established as parents. Aside from that, you might also be bitter that your parents clearly paid for gym membership for one of you but not the other. Now, I feel most of us can relate to this dynamic of unfair treatment because most of us have experienced this ourselves or know families who are just like this, with the exception that perhaps in your examples the families involved aren't attractive gods. While this family dynamic concept is not exactly something new to entertainment, it still makes for an interesting story in this particular case, because the strength of this particular family's relationship determines the fate of Asgard and also the other realms they protect, including our friggin' world. So with that in mind, I think it's time we defrost this movie, which we threw into the back of the freezer many years ago, so that we can rediscover the nutritious family values within. And we'll also take the time to appreciate some other decent things about this movie. We get some backstory showing us how Earth was protected by another realm called Asgard, when a race of frost giants from a different other realm tried to freeze the planet. And then Odin, King of Asgard, played by the immensely brilliant Anthony Hopkins, made an agreement with the frost giants' king, Laufey, that if Laufey and his people just chill out on their own planet and promise to never leave, Asgard will do them a favour and not kill them. It's a pretty sweet deal. But then one day, just as Thor is about to be crowned as the new king, Odin senses that the frost giants have broken into Asgard's vault, just because they want to get their hands on this special ice cube weapon thing. But their plans get quickly shut down by this advanced robot guard simply named Destroyer. Destroyer is going to play a part in this family dynamic, and that's why I bring him up. But we'll come back to that later. This break-in event fires up the first family argument for us to observe. King Odin wants to prevent a war from erupting, whereas hot-headed Thor is still trying to prove his worthiness as a bold future king. And he's still kinda ticked off about his ceremony being interrupted. So he lashes out at Daddy, demanding that the frost giants pay for their intrusion. But Daddy gets the belt out and puts him in his place.
As king of Asgard.
But you're not king!
All the while, someone at the back here is being awfully quiet. I wonder if he has anything to do with this unexpected break-in. Maybe he would have his reasons for the ceremony to be postponed. Well, I know I personally don't see any alarm bells when my brother decides to wear devil-shaped horns and also dress in darker colours than the rest of the family. Well, let's just move on and pretend that we don't know that he was involved all along. Thor throws a hissy fit because at this stage of the movie, he's just a petulant man baby. And he says, I don't care if Daddy says going to Jotunheim is forbidden. I want to go there and bash their skulls in. And I'm not going alone. Gimli, Classy Lass, Grand Chap and Asian Gorn, they're coming with me too. Yes, brother, says Loki. It's a great idea to betray your father and make me look like the better son. What did you say, Loki? I said it's a great idea. You should protect the kingdom from future attacks.
We're going to Jotunheim.
So off they all ride across the Rainbow Bridge. But before we leave Asgard for a while, I think it's important to stop and just observe what we're seeing here. This scenery is pretty great, and after watching the behind the scenes footage, I was surprised to find out that this isn't all green screen. There's a considerable amount of actual practical sets here, which no doubt took several months to plan, build and perfect. And that goes for the costumes too. Everyone in Asgard looks rich and well off, but the costume designer knew to make the colours of the civilians bland, so that when Thor walks in with his bright red cape, it stands out so much more. Well, that's enough kissing the arses of the crew for now, because it looks like the Fellowship have reached the end of the Rainbow Bridge. They talk with Heimdall, who is the gatekeeper for Asgard, and he too is a little peed off that the Frost Giants managed to sneak in. Somehow. So Heimdall allows the crew passage to the forbidden world of Jotunheim. And as a funny minor detail for you here, in Norse mythology, Heimdall is described as the god with the whitest skin. The irony, of course, being that Idris Elba is the only black character in the main cast of Thor. And needless to say, of course it doesn't matter what colour skin he has, he plays the part well. But when I read the description in the folklore, I couldn't help but chuckle. Thor and the Fellowship face up against the Frost King, and they do battle with a few waves of cannon fodder. And it's in this scene that we get the most satisfying kill in the whole movie. Odin catches wind of Thor's warmongering and comes to settle things down before anyone's feelings get hurt. But the Frost King says, "It's too late. Your son disrespected my family and also killed my dog."
I lost everything. That dog was a final gift from my dying wife.
It's not what you did, son. It's who you did it to.
Back home in Asgard, Daddy Odin really has the arseache now, and he's grilling Thor about his reckless behaviour. And I feel this is Anthony Hopkins' best acting in the whole movie.
You are a vain, greedy, cruel boy!
And you are an old man and a fool!
Yes, I was a fool.
Odin banishes Thor to Earth, stripping him of his Thunder God abilities, which also includes the power to yield Mjolnir. He then puts a spell on Mjolnir, preventing anyone from yielding the power unless they prove themselves to be worthy enough. But for some reason he sent this hammer to the exact same planet as where Thor is, and only about a mile away from where he landed. And it's here you realise that Odin's only testing Thor, dangling the carrot nearby so to speak, knowing that Thor will try to regain his worthiness. Yay, I'm worthy, Daddy does love me still, because he sent me this challenge. And now you see, Odin isn't the dad you want, but he's the dad you need. This type of daddy teaches you about getting your shit together. An important life lesson for Thor, because if he was simply allowed to stay at home, he would have carried on his arrogant and reckless path. While Thor's on Earth learning how to live as a mortal, Loki is explaining how he told Heimdall to inform Odin about the trip to Jotunheim.
You told the god!
I saved our lives. And Thor's. I had no idea Father would banish him for what he did.
You're a liar! You're a liar! You know something that you're not telling us, you slimy scumbag liar!
Loki knows that the only way he will ever feel worthy enough is while he's not being overshadowed by Thor's presence. Loki's identity crisis goes deeper, however. He knows he's always been different to Thor, but it's when he picks up the mystical ice cube thing that it reveals he's actually Laufey's son, and not Odin's son as he's always believed. It's this scene where we see some brilliant acting from Tom Hiddleston as he demonstrates confusion, a feeling of betrayal, and ultimately disbelief as to what he's now learning.
Tell me! Could have told me what I was from the beginning. Why didn't you?
You're my son. I wanted only to protect you from the truth.
Imagine believing your whole life that you were part of the family, only to be told in your 30s that you were adopted. Furthermore, you were adopted into the family as a tool to prevent further wars, by uniting the different tribes as a neutral baby. Yeah, that's pretty messed up. This family drama aspect is something I had entirely overlooked on my first viewing, as I was only expecting to watch a popcorn flick about superheroes doing good things and villains doing bad things. So if this is like you, I highly recommend that you revisit this movie, so you too can appreciate it in the same way that I just have. Oh, and by the way, this is what my channel is all about, so come and subscribe if you're into reviewing and learning to appreciate movies in different ways. I will always try and bring you something new while entertaining you at the same time. Well anyway, while I've been advertising my channel, it appears the heartbreaking dispute has taken its toll on Odin. He's suffering some sort of heart attack / coma situation. And I'm really glad that Loki doesn't instantly turn into some cartoonish villain here. He instead shows care for his quote unquote father.
Gods! Gods, please help!
Keep in mind what Loki's just learnt. He could have easily gone full evil here, cackling evilly as he watches Odin die. That could have been the obvious choice to go with, and I'm glad they chose otherwise. With Odin incapacitated, the throne is left empty for Loki to take ownership. An unexpected change of leadership for the Fellowship, but they still respect it regardless of their suspicions to Loki's plans as king. Lingering in the background of this movie is Mother, and she's there to remind Loki that despite everything he's just learned, he's still their son and Mummy and Daddy love him very much. But the damage has been done, it appears, as the resentment within Loki reaches breaking point, and he carries out his first act of arguable evil. He goes down to Earth to pay Thor a visit, where he lies to Thor and tells him that Daddy has died, all because of the pain of having to banish his first son. And also the war that Thor reignited with the Frost Giants is just too much for Daddy's heart to handle.
You mustn't blame yourself. I know that you loved him.
You manipulative bastard. We should remind ourselves now that all of this was preventable. If only Odin had just been open and honest with Loki from the start, he might have turned out less resentful. And he might also appreciate the fact that Odin was trying to do something good for him. Loki was abandoned by his biological father Laufey, so even though Odin had some ulterior motives, he was still being nice by taking him in. With Loki now on the warpath, he'll soon try to take out Thor while he's powerless and stuck on Earth. And yes, I know I've neglected to talk about any of these Earthbound scenes so far, and that's because there's really not that much interest in here for me to cover. I kinda like the fish out of water aspect, that's pretty funny.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!
Sorry, Izzy, little accident.
And going back to kissing the crew's arse, I do appreciate the fact that they basically built this whole town, and in doing so it allowed for some cool explosion in practical effects. A nice reminder that not everything has to be CGI. The problem with the Earthbound scenes is that there's some time dedicated to this romance built between Thor and some woman called Jane, and I don't really care for it. I don't really see it as interesting as the family drama going on in Asgard. And there's also Jane's two friends who are in the story, and I don't really feel they add much to the story at all. Loki kind of almost slaps Thor to death here, and it's kind of unclear if his intention was to kill him or not, because we just saw Loki decided not to laser him, but this slap definitely could have killed him. So I've just got to ask, what is it you actually want, Loki? To further add to this confusing stance, Loki goes back on his plans to allow Laufey access to Odin while he's vulnerable.
And your death came by the son of Odin.
And then after this, he then tries to destroy the realm of Jotunheim, with the rationale that he wants to prove his worthiness as a potential king. So why didn't you try to destroy Jotunheim before bringing Laufey out of Jotunheim to Asgard? You could have killed two birds with one stone by doing this. This is all very convoluted, and I guess that's to be expected when you're dealing with an emotionally misguided wannabe king.
Loki, this is madness.
Is it madness? Is it? Is it?
The movie ends with Thor destroying the Rainbow Bridge to stop the destruction of Jotunheim, which naturally means that he also can't use this bridge to ever return to Jane. Well, until he does in the next movie. I forget how exactly he manages to get back to Jane. No, I don't think that's really important right now. But what is important is us watching Thor try to save Loki from falling off the edge of this broken bridge. And we see that Daddy's also here now. He managed to wake up just in time to see all of this go down. Nicely timed, Coma. Loki desperately tries to reason with Daddy and tries to convince him that everything he was doing was to make him proud. But we know, and Odin knows, he's really been doing all of this for himself, just so he can feel like the most important son for once.
I could have done it! For you! For all of us!
No, Loki.
Loki now has nothing left to live for, so he lets himself fall into the vacuum of space, never to return again, until he does. Well, now we're near the end, let's take away some key lessons from this movie. Number 1, if you build a relationship on lies, it's going to end in disaster. Number 2, if you don't want your kid to grow up as an arrogant little prick, ground them with a reality check once in a while. And lesson number 3, if you're feeling inferior to your brother, sit down with him, express your feelings to him, really open up and allow yourself to be vulnerable, you know? And then get your pussy ass down the gym and step up. Quit your whining and get grinding. Yeah, Chris Hemsworth workout plan. Why be a low key when you can be a swole key? Join my gym today by hitting subscribe. I better see you here next time, bro.